Hello world, we are anonymous. A new day of standoffs against the 1,200-mile Dakota Access Pipeline continued on Friday in South Dakota. As questions through social media over the fairness of how protesters were being treated. The dispute between the tribe and the federal government has now evolved into standoffs that on Thursday escalated into a raid during which more than 140 people were arrested. Hundreds of police wearing riot gear closed in on an encampment of tents and teepees while surveillance helicopters circled overhead. Native Americans from across the country have converged on the area to join the protest. This is a historical moment as 280 Native American tribes that have joined together at Standing Rock in what activists are calling the largest, most diverse tribal action in at least a century, perhaps since Little Bighorn. We anon stand with Standing Rock and are here to let the world know that we will not stand for the injustice carried out, and we will continue to release information, shut down sites of the ones responsible. Information on what you can do is listed in the description below, and to anyone involved in financing or construction of the pipeline. Expect us.
Advocate, the developer says it's private land, they went through the proper permitting process, the tribe sued, they had its day in course, they lost. What do you say to that?
I'd say that, what we've seen repeatedly happen to these people is they've made one treaty in 1861, and ever since then that treaty has been violated. That land that they're talking about, that easement, is actually treaty land. That is owned by the Native American people based on the single treaty they made with the United States. That treaty supersedes any laws that the state might make later. And so today, Obama could literally, could say that we are honoring the 1851 treaty and we are not allowing that easement to be taken as private property. That's basically at the crux of the issue. That easement that they're talking about as private property, based on the 1851 treaty, the standing treaty that these people made with the American government, is Indian land, is Native American land that belongs to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, a nation. I met a girl who had her arm broken a few days ago. Many of the protesters had encounters with the police in their arrests, where they were thrown into jail cells naked, they were strip searched. We had an encounter with the police yesterday. We went to one of the roadblocks just to say hello, and get a sense of the feeling there, and the feeling that the police were sort of emanating. And it was definitely, there was two police officers with AR-15s with their fingers right next to the trigger, with their the dark sunglasses on. Very, very aggressive. Now, I spent the day on the camp, the forward camp, the one that you're seeing here, where people were engaged in prayer. Every single person you see there was trained in peaceful resistance, which means that no one is allowed out in that area unless they've had some sort of peaceful resistance training. The mantra of the place is, it's not the police, it's the pipeline that we're protesting or protecting ourselves against. And they spend basically the entire day doing prayers, chanting. I've never been around so peaceful a stand. It's led by young people. You can see in these photos, the first people who began this whole movement were young people from 10 years old to 17, 18 years old. And the tribal leaders are still taking their lead from them. What's significant that people don't know is that this particular issue has brought together 500 tribes from all over the nation. Never in the history of our nation has all of the Native American tribes come together under one issue. And they see this as a very special historical moment for them.
On October 10th, at least 27 people, including Hollywood actress Shailene Woodley, were arrested blockading Dakota Access Pipeline construction at two separate work sites. Footage of Woodley's arrest was streamed live to roughly 40,000 viewers on her Facebook page.
Now you're going to be placed under arrest for criminal trespass, all right? Because I have 40,000 people watching.
So everybody knows we were going to our vehicle, which they had all surrounded and waiting for me with giant guns and the giant truck behind them, just so they could arrest me, so they knew this would happen. I hope you're watching mainstream media.
Shailene, can you talk about what happened to you? This was right after Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day.
This was on Indigenous Peoples Day. It was right after. So I happened to be in town. I had been gone from Standing Rock for a month, and I had gotten back the night before Indigenous Peoples Day. And there was a sunrise ceremony, a sunrise prayer. Everyone woke up at 6 a.m. and gathered by the river to pray, which is how most days at Standing Rock start. So all of this dialogue and these narratives about riots is so fascinating to me when, you know, it's so grounded in ceremony and in prayer. I can't stress that enough. So everyone got up and prayed, and the night before, coincidentally, right after the presidential debate, when the whole world's focus and attention was on Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the U.S. Court of Appeals decided to deny the injunction to halt construction of the pipeline. So an action was spontaneously put into place, a peaceful action that I participated in. And we all went down to this certain area. I couldn't give you the exact landmarks because I had never been there before. And a few people had done planned arrests to bring attention to the day and to the cause. I was not one of those people. I was participating in peaceful protest and in peaceful protection for clean water, along with roughly 300 people, including my mother. And I was standing exactly how all the rest of these 300 people were standing and doing what these other 300 people were doing, which was praying, which was chanting, which was singing. And after about 2 or 3, 4, my timing is off, but after quite a few hours of doing this, once the people who had chosen to be arrested were detained and sent safely away, we all left because the cops were leaving, and so we all peacefully left. And as I was walking up to my RV in the back of the line of the protesters' cars, so there weren't a lot of people around, my mom was with me and a few friends. There was a group of cops waiting for me, as well as a tank. I don't know, like, that's so crazy to say. There's a tank, a war tank, and then there was like a SWAT car tank, and they were waiting there, and they grabbed my arm and they asked if I was Shailene Woodley, and I said yes, and they told me to wait, and eventually they decided to come back and arrest me.
So were you the only person outside of those who were willing to get arrested? I mean, there were several hundred others like you who were there in support but left when you were told to. You were the only one who was arrested?
Yes.
Did they say why?
I mean, I was charged with criminally trespassing and with engaging in a riot. They didn't say why. I made a comment saying, is it because I'm Shailene Woodley, people maybe know who I am? I was, like you mentioned, I was Facebook live streaming while I was getting arrested, but also before that I had been live streaming for 2+ hours and had over 40,000 people at that time of my time of arrest watching. But even prior to that, we waxing and waning in and out of 30,000 to 50,000 people, give or take. So it was creating a lot of momentum outside of Standing Rock, and as we all know, there has been a media blackout about what's going on, and it's up to people like you, Amy, and you're doing this so bravely and so courageously, and people like us on the ground with our Facebook live streams, and these brave warriors out there who are being arrested to bring attention to this cause, because no one's talking about it. And it's time for that to stop. It is not acceptable that there are tanks in North Dakota facing elders and children and protectors of clean water. This is something that is a big issue, and we cannot lay idle anymore about it.
Now, what happened next? You were brought to the Mandan jail?
Morton County, yeah, Mandan jail. And then we were strip searched, and
you were charged with these low-level misdemeanors, and you were strip searched?
Yeah, we were asked to. We had to get undressed in front of someone.
You were by yourself?
And by ourselves.
With the guard?
Yeah, watching, and prove that we had nothing on or in our bodies. And then from there, we were told to put on an orange jumpsuit also while being watched. And then sat in a holding chamber with a group of other women.
So
I have to say, I was the first person who got released that day on bail. My mom happened to be there, and I think it freaked her out a lot. But there were a lot of women who I got to know in that chamber who had to stay overnight and spent a lot more time in jail than I did. And I think it's really important, and I think it's beautiful that we talk about my arrest and we're talking about Daya's, but there are a lot of people out there who don't have the support that I have because of my name. And we all need to be supporting them just as much as we're paying attention to the issues that we're here to talk about, because those are our brothers and our sisters on the line who are sacrificing so much of their livelihood in order to stand in solidarity with this movement.
You were not just, you didn't just go in on that day, on Indigenous Peoples Day, Shailene. You've been going back to North Dakota now for many, many months. Why is the Dakota Access Pipeline standoff so important to you? Why are you so concerned about this close to $4 billion pipeline being built?
You know, there's a lot of reasons to be aware of this pipeline. One is climate change. As we all know, every single time we allow another pipeline to be built or another fracking well to be built, we are endorsing the fossil fuel industry and only prolonging the time that it's going to take to switch to renewable energy. But something that's really important about this movement in particular is the fact that it's not only happening outside and on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, but Indigenous people are at the forefront of this fight. And most of the time, Indigenous people and marginalized communities are the first people affected by climate change and by the fossil fuel industry, because there's a certain veil of silence that's thrown over these communities when these pipelines go through. A lot of people don't pay attention. You know, it's like why 45 minutes south of LA, there's the largest oil refinery west of the Mississippi, yet those people living in Beverly Hills and those of Santa Monica, we don't know about it. Predominantly, if you just look at the different communities and the people who live there, you have to ask yourself, is that coincidence or is there a reason for that? And that's what we're seeing at Standing Rock. You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but for the first time in history, before colonization, Native American tribes, a lot of them were at war with one another and didn't get along. And so for the first time in history, these different bands, these different tribes, and non-Native allies are coming together to heal the past and to move forward in solidarity for future generations. And that's really major. This is a historical moment. This will be in history books. Things are changing, and it's because people are letting go of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering that has existed for so many years. And we cannot. It is our civic and civil responsibility, especially me as a non-Native, to recognize what my ancestors did to Native Americans in this country and what I refuse to let continue to happen to Native Americans in this country.
You know, I was speaking
2016, and you have peaceful protectors protecting water for more than 18 million people who rely on the Missouri River for clean, fresh drinking water. You have our Native American brothers and sisters protecting sacred sites, protecting what they're so divinely connected to, culturally, ancestrally, so deeply connected to. My sister Lauren, another youth council member, whose wrist was broken for the second time today by the police officers. The first time happened on either Friday or Saturday when she was trying to protect a little boy because he was so terrified that the police were macing people. So she was trying to get the little boy out there, and her wrist was broken by the baton of police officers. The second time they were trying to grab her and she was pulling away, and it broke it again. She felt it. And this warrior stood there just taking the pain. And she got medical attention, and her wrist was put in a splint, and she was right back up there, up in the front line. She was maced at least 4 times. At least. Every time, right back up there. The third time, I had to get Jacelyn out of there again. So my whole left side was maced. But again, she went right back up there, right back up to the front lines. I looked around and I saw the familiar faces that I've seen for the 3.5, 4 months that I've been at Standing Rock. I'm sorry, I'm emotional right now, but we looked at each other, and when you locked eyes with someone you knew, there was no words to be said. There was only a look of acknowledgement and a look that I got your back no matter what happens. Because that's how militant the police were. And yes, they told us to move back. And yes, they were like gently pushing us so that we would move back so that they would not have to arrest us, but that wasn't all of them. Some of them had smirks on their faces, and as I called them out, I said, "Sir, why do you have a smirk on your face? Why do you think it's funny that you maced us, these young women, barely in our adulthoods, multiple times, and we keep coming back right in front of you, unarmed, wearing prayers, as you guys come in helmets, in riot gear, with your guns on your hips, with your rifles in your hands, with your batons, holding 5-pound extinguisher type mace cans. You have helmets on, you have bulletproof vests on, you have tasers, you've had your taser out. I've had rifles pointed at me. And we're peaceful protectors. And this is happening. So if you're watching and if you've been following up, and not everybody can be here physically, and that's okay because we all have jobs. But I ask you to talk about it. I urge you to go out of your way and make sure people know what's happening. People know what's happening right here in America, as we peacefully protect waters which will be contaminated by this pipeline, which we have seen through the multiple breakings of countless pipelines. One just broke last week. And as more pipelines come to fruition, West Texas, I heard there was something going on in New York. We have to band together and stand up. We have to stand up and show up and speak up. And showing up looks different for many of us. Showing up may mean frontlining. Showing up may mean talking about it. Showing up may mean creating art so that people can feel empathy with it, can connect with it in a different way. Showing up may mean singing about it. If you're a singer, if you're a musician, before you show, you talk about it. Before your show, you talk about it. In a family discussion, talk about it. Let your kids know what's happening. Let your kids know that this isn't right. That peaceful protectors are being harmed physically. And mace hurts, guys. Mace is sore, and I'm still burning right now. My face is still burning. My arms are burning. It's still going on right now. But I do know that Spirit's on our side. Our ancestors are on our side. Because at one point, the buffalo came in. And we all looked, and we all just cried. I looked up to a trailer where my brother Yaz was staying. We locked eyes. We were just bawling tears. The buffalo came in and it gave us so much strength. And I'm crying now because it hurts. It hurts me to see such a strong, forceful opposition. For them to be able to protect this pipeline to go through, while we stand here unharmed, hearts forward, hands open, to protect the water for 18 million people who rely on it to protect the sacred lands. Because enough is enough. So I ask you to pray, send prayers, talk about it, show up in any way that you can. Speak up, not just about this. Speak up about the change that's happening right now. And revolutions won't be televised, but they will be talked about. They will be told about. They will be known. So don't not do anything. Please, do something. Do something to help make this movement move, because it takes all of us. Not just us at the front lines, not just us at camp. It takes all of us. Share the live feeds that you see, not just mine. Share the live feeds of the front lines of what happened. I wanted to post this because Auntie Pool wanted me to let you all know that we have to do something. We cannot just sit there and pretend like nothing's happening. And we all may live good lives in houses and turn on a faucet with clean water and flick a switch with electricity. And that may all be beautiful. But we can't take that for granted. Don't be lazy. Don't be scared. Stand up, show up, speak up. And know that we're all right behind you. We all have your back. That when you look to the left or the right and you see someone that you recognize, no words have to be said. Just a head nod in acknowledgement that whatever happens, we're there for you. In all ways and always. So thank you. And we'll try to keep you updated as much as possible. For right now, me personally, I'm safe. The youth members are safe. Thank you.